Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel, whichever comes up first. I'm not sure whether you've been here before or not. In today's video, I want to go over the process of using vCarve Pro or vCarve software to make Christmas ornaments. 'Tis the season, and I make lots and lots of these. I use the same style for most of my ornaments, and it's a pretty straightforward style that you can duplicate. And so I wanted to show you how I go about doing that. And in this video today, I'm going to make a gingerbread ornament. This is a 3D version, but it'll look something like this, and I'm going to go through that process. So with that, let's talk about what I do for ornaments and how I go about designing them. Now, this will be a multi-part video. The first part will be using the vCarve software and how I design the ornaments. Included in this part, I will also show you how I export the designs as an SVG file and a DXF file for making the same ornaments with my laser or with my 3D printer. This one was made with my 3D printer. In the next series of videos, I don't know whether that will be 1 or 2 or 3, we'll figure it out. I will go through the process of taking those exported files and making them with the 3D printer and the laser, and I will use this file to make it on the CNC. So I'm not going to physically make the ornaments at this time, but I'm going to show you how to design them. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Here's several of the ornaments that I have on my current website. I've got everything from Christmas style, specific areas like Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard, and these sports ornaments I make for teams and for individuals to celebrate their youth's activities. So I want to go through the process. One of the things you'll notice is most of these templates are all the same. That's one clue right there. When I'm making ornaments, I use a standard template. These are 3D style ornaments where I have a centerpiece, I have an up front piece, and if I want, I have a back piece also. My standard method of doing that is to use Vectric software. I usually use Vectric vCarve Pro because that's the one I'm most familiar with. You'll see that most of these ornaments are made from a laser, so I design the ornament in Vectric and then I transfer it into Lightburn to cut the ornament with my laser because it has finer capabilities. As you know, lasers are tighter clearances and so forth, but I could make these on my CNC. It just might not have as much detail. The other way that I started doing lately is actually with this one here. So on this version, I 3D print this outside area and also the back. And on the inner area that you see with the starry nights and all of that, that's a piece of veneer that I've purchased from Smoky Hills Designs. And combination makes for quite a striking thing. So I've used 3D printing, I've used lasers, and I've used my CNC. So the first thing I want to do is create a new file. And I like to work in millimeters. My ornaments are right about 4 inches in diameter, slightly bigger because of the way the hook is on there. Yeah, I was practicing on putting these together for the video, so you can see the information's already in here. But what I did was, I'm working in millimeters, but I know I want about 4 inches. So I can put the math in here, 4 inches times, and then I put M because I want the result to be in millimeters. So I hit equal, and it gives me the amount that I want in inches, and I can come down here and do the same. So it gives me the inches amount in millimeters, and I can come down here and do the same. So I'm going to actually round this up to 102 for my ornament. And then the next thing is down here, I'm going to use a 1/8 inch piece of plywood, so 0.125 M with the equal mark, and you can see it comes out with 3.175. Machine surface material, this is fine, standard. I'm not doing any fancy modeling, so we're good there. The next step is to bring in my template. I have an SVG that I use both when I'm doing it on the laser and when I'm doing it in the CNC. And so one way is to bring in the SVG template file, which I can do by simply coming over here and I go to a folder. It says template, SVG versions. I come through here and these are the SVG templates I've developed, and I can bring in that template, open, can take and I can center that by hitting the F9 key. and now it's all centered. And because I brought it in as an SVG, you can see I've got various layers in it. I've got the hook hole, I've got the cutout, which is the outer part, and you're going to notice I have two circles here. I'm going to do them both, inside circle, inside vCarve. So the inside circle is actually a guide that I use when I bring it into the 3D printing environment or when I'm designing a new ornament. And the inner vCarve design, which is the same one, you're going to see later in the presentation how I use this to build my actual internal ornaments. So that's what the SVG is for me. Now I could have used a template design, which I also have saved, and let me show you how I would have done that. Let's restart, and if I come out of here, let's close this, file, close. Want to save? No. The other way I can do it is I can open it from a new file from template, and I have a template here. Come over here to templates, and you see one here, ornament making 4-inch. Hit open. And the advantage to having brought in as a template, you can see everything sized already for me. The other thing that's an advantage is when I come to the layers, it's got one little extra design section here, another section, inner vCarve design here. So we'll take off these inner circle, inner vCarve design, hook, inner cutout is a new layer that I've set up that goes with the design section, and then cutout. And I'll explain all of those here in a second. Now what I want to do though is, so we don't get confused, is I want to move these layers around a little bit. So I've got the cutout down here, and I've got an inner cutout, and I'm going to move that up here because these are going to be the cutout sections, and this inner vCarve is going to be where I put the design, and then we've got this design section. So I want to rearrange those. That'll become clearer later. And the only place you can rearrange your layers up and down is in this side section. So that's why you saw me come over there. You cannot do that over in this layer section. So what I want to do next is start on how I go about designing the actual ornament. So let me use an example of gingerbread person. The first thing that we're going to need to do is go get a picture or an SVG of a gingerbread man, and I happen to have one of those in my files, so let me go get that. So let's go up here to import bitmap or vectors, so select that, and then I'm going to come over to the area where I have that stored, and you don't need to see that, so I'll skip forward real quickly. So there's my gingerbread people. I don't want this one. Let me get rid of that one. And this one here, for a second, I'm going to group it together by hitting G. Then I'm going to put it in the center by hitting F9. Now I've got that in the center. What I want to do is get things set up for making this the center part of the ornament and leaving it along with the ring. The next thing I'm going to do is resize this, but I'm going to change this to a different layer, and that is the design section layer. Remember, I told you I would use that in the future, so I'm going to put all of my design on this layer, and now I need to go ahead and make it so I can see it. I'm going to select that, and remember this 75.5 millimeters. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to resize it to the largest size being just slightly above that. Let's do 76 millimeters. Hit apply. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm taking and I'm making it so that parts of the gingerbread person is overlapping with the inner circle here. Because what's going to happen is we're going to cut away these sections and leave the gingerbread man in place. So now that we have that design in place, let's go ahead and I need to ungroup this. So you can hit U for ungroup. Let's make sure it stayed on the right section. Let me hit move to layer. Nope, it changed back to Cookie Classic. So we want to take it to the design section. All right. So now it's on the design section. If we come in here, right here, we can get rid of so we don't get confused later. We're going to hit delete this. All right, so we've got it on the design section. We've got the design section as the default now. We just selected that. So now everything that we do will be on the design section. I want to take this circle and move that to the design section. So now we've got this design. The next thing we need to do is make sure that this will be held by the outer rim. So I come in here, I select this scissor tool. I come in here and I select the Command Z, Command Z. I want to do this one first, then this one. Remember to do the outside first, then the inside. And now what we have, if we hit close, is we have all of these on the inner design. So when we start cutting things out, we'll have the gingerbread person left connected to the outer ring. So the next setup that we want to do is to move into the Toolpaths. All right, now that I've got the design set up, the next thing I want to do is start designing the toolpaths. And these toolpaths are in here because of the file that I saved as a template. The other toolpaths I need, I'll add to. So let's talk about how we want to work from inside out. So the first toolpath I'm going to need is to be able to design these little intricate areas in here. And I'm going to do that with a vCarve toolpath. What I want to do is I want to take these here. I got to hold down the Shift key. And remember, if you go left to right, anything you cross gets it in. If you go right to left, you have to have the whole section. So these I'm going to vCarve, and I want to move those to a layer that says Inner vCarve Design. You remember that layer that I had from before. Then the next thing that I want to do is make sure that I have the cutout. So this here and this here that I just hit Shift and selected are going to be cut out completely. So I want to move those to the Inner cutout layer. That's why I had that layer there before. All right, and now that I've moved there, hit Enter. And so now doesn't look like those moved to the Inner cutout. Let's come back over here, try it again. Move to the Inner cutout area. So we've got now Inner vCarve, we got the Inner cutout, we got the hook hole, and we got the cutout. In the design section, we have this, which tells me I haven't taken care of everything. This also has to move now to the Inner cutout because I'm going to want to cut that out. So that's what I just did. I went and checked. So now this should be empty once we've moved everything to the various areas that we need to cut out or vCarve. So now that we've got that set up, let's start with the vCarve. So I'm going to do a vCarve toolpath. I'm going to do a flat depth of 0.08. That's a little less than 0.1 inches times M equals. Now I know you guys, if you want to work in inches, everything could be done in inches, 4 inches by 4 inches. But again, I'm going to transfer this into my laser, and so I've decided to work in millimeters. That's a personal choice. Now I've got to select my V-bit, so I'm going to select a 1/4 inch 30-degree V-bit that I have. I'm going to select an 1/8 inch bit that I have, and on this 1/8 inch bit, what I want to do is make sure it's a down cut, since I don't want to pull the plywood up. So I'm going to go with a 1/8 inch down cut bit, hit select. I'm going to remove this one, going through here and looking, and now that I have everything selected, I'm going to move from there to Inner vCarve Design, associate with, close. I'll call it vCarve Features, hit Calculate. All right, it shows we're going to do that, and I like to go ahead and make those, let's say, a toolpath color. So I'm going to make that brown, and I'm going to make that brown. And if I wanted to, I could make it easy to paint because I could put a masking on this, and then I could just spray paint it or paint it with a brush after it was done. Or I could actually do this in a darker wood and paint those white, just like a gingerbread. So we've got different choices there we can do. Then the next thing that I want to do, let me move those up. The next toolpath I want is this internal cutout right here. I want a profile toolpath. I want to go through the material. I always put Z for that. I'm going to go ahead and use a compression bit for that. And I want to go inside of these vectors. Because I'm using a template, I want to keep the template. I'm going to do Inner cutout, hit associate with, hit close, and I'm going to say Inner cutout. Calculate. So you can see I needed to set up two new toolpaths, a vCarve and a inner cutout. I'll move that up. I've got my hook hole and I've got my cutout. So now let's take a look, a preview of what all that looks like. I didn't set up any tabs because I wanted to be able to clear everything out like this so you could see what the ornament looks like. So there you have a gingerbread ornament. Looking pretty cool if you ask me. Then the next thing that we can do is go ahead and change the design slightly. Let's say you don't like these rounded corners. Well, you could actually, and that's the advantage you get with the laser, you could actually make these a little sharper by changing these to a V-bit or a tapered ball nose. So let me show you what I mean. We're going to go over here to 2D. I'm going to reset the preview. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate this. This I don't need to do anything with. And so now what you see me do is I'm going to turn around and hit Z. And I'm going to go Z plus 1 millimeter because when you're using these sharpened tools, you want to get it all the way cut out. And instead of using, you could use a V-bit, I'm going to use this tapered ball nose. Hit select. So that's less than a 15-degree angle. That's about 12-degree angle. Everything else should be the same. Hit calculate. Tells me it's going to cut through. Yep, that's what I want it to do. And now what I'm going to do is let's do the same toolpaths, but instead of using the 1/8 inch for the inner cutout, I'm going to use the tapered ball nose, and we're going to preview the visible toolpaths. So now you can see we have a sharper setup here in these areas. So that's how you have it lined up in the CNC. So now if we want to take this design and use it on the laser, or if we want to use it for 3D printing, let me show you those steps. I'm going to do the laser first. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to 2D preview. I'm going to go ahead and select all of those vectors. I'm going to export those vectors as an SVG. And so I want to go to my Lightburn files where I keep my vectors. And so I'm going to actually go in here to Lightburn support files. Also, I need to export this file here, not only as an SVG, but as a DXF file, because that's going to help me better when I go to Fusion 360 to make my 3D printed ornament. So now I'm going to do the same thing I did with the SVG file, but I'm going to export this as a DXF, and I'm going to export it into this Christmas related gingerbread ornament, and I'm going to say gingerbread ornament, save, and now I have a DXF file that I can use later. Well, that's a wrap on the designing of the ornaments and how to export them in files that I can use on my laser and in Fusion 360 to make 3D prints on my Bamboo printer. I hope that you were able to pick up a couple tricks here and there to help you design your own ornaments. I'll make the SVG and DXF file to how I do the outer ring available to you if you want to go use it. I hope you're able to go out and make an ornament or so on your own. I'm going to go ahead and release a couple other videos in the next week here. One will be me cutting this ornament on my CNC. The other will be me using the SVG file that I exported and cutting it on my laser. And the last will be me importing the DXF file into Fusion 360, putting the ornament together in there, and then exporting that into Bamboo Studio and printing it. In fact, that ornament will be this one here that I showed at the beginning of the video. So if you want to be notified when I release those videos and find out how I physically cut the files that I just designed, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I also appreciate any like, comments, or anything else you can do to support the channel. With that, like I said, go have some fun. Until we meet in this medium again, go make some chips, create some laser burnings, 3D prints, whatever it is that you like to do to have fun for the holidays. Thank you.